Hello friends, welcome to e-learning platform of Dr. Bapuji Saranke Institute of Engineering and Technologies Mechanical Engineering Department. In last session we have started with our sixth unit, that is selection of anti-friction bearings and gears, and in this session we will continue with the same. So let's talk about the classification of roller contact bearing. So roller contact bearings are classified into two major groups. First is ball bearing and second is roller bearing. Again, ball bearings are further divided into single row bearing, filling notch bearing, double row bearing, angular contact bearing, self aligning bearing, and last is the thrust bearing. Roller bearings are classified into cylindrical roller bearing, spherical roller bearing, taper roller bearing, and last is needle roller bearing. So we will discuss the each type individually in next session. So first is ball bearing. In ball bearing, spherical balls are used as a rotating element. So in this figure you can see these are the spherical balls. So these are the balls which are evenly placed in this cage. This outer surface is nothing but cage, and this whole assembly is fitted into this races. So this is called as outer race and this is called as inner race. Okay, as there is the point contact between the inner race ball and outer surfaces, so it forms the higher fair. The ball bearings are used for light loads. First type is single row deep groove bearing. So this is the section for the single row deep groove bearing. So in figure you can see the single deep groove bearing. So in this type of bearing, the radius of the ball is slightly less than the radius of curvature of the grooves in the races. So the ball radius is slightly smaller for the misalignments of the arrangement. This gives a point contact between the balls and the races. Therefore, the balls and the races may roll freely without any sliding. So, such type of bearings are used in electric motors, machine tool spindles, and small types of centrifugal pumps. Second is filling notch bearing. These bearings have notches in the inner and outer races. So here you can see the notch provided on the inner and outer races, due to which more balls to be inserted than in a deep groove ball bearing. Due to increased number of balls, it has high load carrying capacity. The notches do not extend to the bottom of the raceway, and therefore the balls inserted through the notches must be forced in the position. So such type of bearings are used in applications with heavy radial loads or a combination of radial and thrust loads where the radial load is predominant. Next, double row bearing. These bearings may be made with radial or angular contact between the balls and the races. Since double row ball bearings are wider and have two rows, they can carry high radial loads. Applications of these bearings are in pumps and speed reducers. Angular contact bearing. In angular contact bearing, one side of the groove in the outer race is cut away to permit the insertion of larger number of balls than that of deep groove ball bearing. These bearings are used in pairs to carry relatively large axial as well as radial loads. They are used in high speed turbines, materials handling, machine tools, steel mills, and wind energy industries. Self aligning bearing. The self-aligning ball bearings consist of two rows of balls which roll on a common spherical surface in the outer race. So here this is the common surface on which the balls are rolling inside the outer race. So it can withstand small amount of angular misalignment and permit sharp deflections within 2 to 3 degree. These are extremely and externally and internally self-aligning bearings. Such type of bearings are used in agricultural machinery, ventilators and railway axle boxes. Next is thrust bearing. A thrust ball bearing consists of a row of balls running between two rings, the shaft ring and the housing ring. So here you can see, so this is the shaft ring, inside ring is the shaft ring and this is the housing ring, and in between these two rings these balls are placed. The thrust ball bearing carries thrust load in only one direction and cannot carry any radial load. So the load is acting in this direction, so it cannot carry the loads like in this direction, that is the radial direction. Okay. Second type is roller bearing. In roller bearings, cylindrical taper or spherical rollers are used as rolling element. The contact between the inner race roller and outer race is line contact, so it also forms a higher pair. The ball bearings are used for heavy loads. Okay, so it is not ball bearing, it is actually roller bearing. So this is the typing error. This is roller bearings are used in heavy loads. First type is cylindrical roller bearing. So they consist of relatively short rollers that are positioned and guided by the cage. So this portion is nothing but cage in which these rollers are evenly placed. They have high rigidity, high radial load carrying capacity and low coefficient of friction, but cannot take thrust loads. So this such type of bearings cannot sustain the thrust loads, that is they can sustain the load only in one direction, that is the radial direction. Such type of bearings are used in high speed services. Second is spherical roller bearing. These bearings are self aligning bearings. So in figure you can see here one directional groove is provided, due to which the arrangement is such that they can self align between the inner and outer cases. So they can carry high radial and thrust loads. They are used in vibrators, shakers, conveyors and speed reducers. Taper roller bearing. The tapered roller bearing is designed so that all elements in the roller surface and the raceways intersect at a common point on the bearing axis. They can carry both radial as well as axial loads. Applications: they are used in geared shifting, automobile wheels and transmissions and rolling wheels. Next is needle roller bearing. These bearings are very useful where radial space is limited. They have high length to diameter ratio. These bearings are relatively slender and completely fill the space so that neither a cage nor a retainer is needed. They are used in farm and construction equipments, small gasoline engines, gear pumps and aircraft control. So these are the different types of ball bearing and roller bearing. Let's see the advantages of roller contact bearing. So low starting and running friction except at very high speed, ability to withstand momentary shock loads, accuracy of shaft alignment, low cost of maintenance, reliability of service, easy to mount and erect, small overall dimensions, can withstand combined loads, that is the combination of radial and axial loads, low starting temperature, the bearing can be sealed with lubricant, that is lifetime lubrication is possible, and last is the sizes of the bearings are standardized and hence the selection of the bearings can be easily done. Disadvantages: finite life due to failure by fatigue, more space requirement in radial direction, poor damping properties, noise level is high at higher speed, higher initial cost, and last is not conforming to the misalignment. Applications of rolling contact bearings. So such type of bearings are used in machine tool spindles, automobile front and rear axles, gearboxes, small size electric motors, rope sheaves, crane hooks and hoisting drums. So this is all about the rolling contact bearings. For any query, you can always contact me on this number. Thank you.